So for more insight and analysis, let's turn now to Republican National Committee spokesperson Elizabeth Pipko, who was live at the conference. Elizabeth, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's getting late over there. I wanted to start off just with your initial reaction to the debate.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was pretty disappointed, right? I'm obviously watching this as someone who works for the Republican National Committee, as a big supporter of President Trump's, but I'm also an American, and watching our current commander-in-chief kind of perform the way that he did, speak the way that he did, jumble around the way that he did, it was sad for me to watch. I have hope. I am very much pretty positive about the fact that the American people will rally around Donald Trump, especially after that performance, and especially after the 3.5 years that we've seen of Joe Biden's administration. But it was a very difficult thing to watch, knowing where my country stands right now and knowing how much I care about this country and how much better I want for all of us.
Oh, look, I agree entirely with you. There were moments where you don't know whether to laugh or cry. You know, it's actually just not even sad so much, but terrifying, watching the leader of the free world essentially not able to speak, not able to make sense, not able to focus. I mean, he struggled to walk.
Exactly. I have heard from countless people in the last hour and a half or so, many of them Democrats, telling me that they're just embarrassed from what they saw. And like you said, that's sad. All of us, no matter what kind of political race that we're in, want the best for this country. I would hope that people that disagreed with me still wanted the best for the country, no matter who was in office. So to see what we saw just now was sad. It was embarrassing. And knowing not only what Americans are feeling, but knowing what people around the world are feeling, both those that support this country as the beacon of light that it is, and those that want the worst for this country, seeing our leadership behave the way that they have, seeing this president kind of rattled as easily as he was this last hour and a half. It's very sad, and it's scary knowing what our adversaries are seeing.
Now, there were clearly a lot of domestic issues covered: Roe v. Wade, the black vote, the Hispanic vote. Here in Australia, we're clearly much more interested in world events and national security. Trump made the point that we are on the brink of World War III, that no war started under his leadership. Both very true points, I believe. What do you make of the fate of the world under Trump? Clearly, you think we're better positioned with him as president of America?
For sure. First of all, polling shows us that Americans do feel as though they would be safer under President Trump. They think President Trump would be better to deal with multiple international issues. I think both were polled recently in terms of the Ukraine-Russia war, as well as the one in the Middle East. And Americans agree on both fronts that President Trump would be the better choice for us. I think it's interesting that you said that in Australia, you're more interested on talking about international issues. In America, we're usually focused on domestic issues, but here we are now going into an election also having to focus on these international issues because we're looking at multiple wars, both wars that did not exist. Like you said, when Donald Trump was in office, he actually focused very heavily on the fact that no war was started during his administration. That is a huge accomplishment considering the administrations before him and what we've seen, of course, under Joe Biden. And I think it goes without saying that the American people don't feel safe. It's very difficult for all of us. We have to worry about, getting food on the table at the same time that we're worried about World War III. The American people do not deserve that. Our allies, by the way, for example, in Israel right now, do not deserve what they're seeing. And none of this would have happened if we had Donald Trump in office right now.
I'm so glad you brought up Israel. That was the next issue that I wanted to cover. And I know a lot of people would have been comforted by the fact that over the past week, Trump has made comments to the effect of every death that has occurred since October 7 is the responsibility of Hamas, which is something that I believe here as well. I wanted to ask you about what he said tonight about Israel. I think his comments were very strong. He said that Israel should essentially finish the job of finishing off Hamas, essentially. He made comment that Biden was trying to be Palestinian and being a very bad one at that. Do you think tonight's debate would have reassured the people of Israel, particularly given Trump is traditionally an isolationist, but it sounds like he's passionate about this cause?
I agree, but look, I hope it actually reassures everyone, right? The war that's going on in Israel does not just concern the Jews and Israelis. This is a war they're fighting against an enemy that we share with them, right? Hamas is a U.S. designated terrorist group too. I'd also want to point out, Joe Biden said during this debate that the United States of America right now is respected, that no one wants to mess with us. And he somehow had the courage to say that while 5 Americans are currently in Gaza being held by this terrorist group for, I want to believe, if I'm not wrong, 264 days right now. That's happened under Joe Biden and on his watch. And he has the courage in that same time, knowing that the parents and the siblings and the family members of these very very hostages are watching him to say that America is respected right now. America is not respected right now. It's the reason that our allies are scared. It's the reason that Bibi Netanyahu had to complain about the way he's been treated by America. It's the reason that our relationship with Israel has started to crumble since October 7th, when the opposite should have happened, because we have an administration that is more focused on winning this election in 4 months than they are about keeping America and their allies safe.
Oh, absolutely. I'd also like to remind my audience of the time Joe Biden said they know not to when asked about the threat of Iran, and literally within days, Iran killed American troops. If he is a president and America is a country that is feared and respected by all, then that might just do me.
That's exactly right. It's sad. It's scary for all of us, and it's rough for me knowing what I just watched and also knowing what the reality is, right? Because I don't know how many people are simply being lied to versus how many people actually believe this is what is going on. We have a president, again, who just now spoke up during this debate. He's the current commander in chief, who said no American troops died on his watch. We just heard President Trump mention the Afghanistan withdrawal, I believe 3 times exactly during this very debate. And the fact that he had the courage to continue to say that is disgraceful. I don't understand why they continue to lie to the American public as they do. I think we're in a very difficult spot in this country, and we need to face what has happened these last 3.5 years and reverse course immediately, instead of continuing to bury us into a deeper and deeper hole.
Just finally, Elizabeth, I'd love to get your thoughts on, I guess, the style of the debate. Prior to this kicking off, I was speaking to a few people I know about the fact that Trump would be better off not attacking or not resorting to name-calling, et cetera, et cetera. It appeared to me as though Joe Biden was much more the instigator of that than Trump.
I completely agree. And let's not forget that he spent, I believe, 7 days, right, locked up in Camp David preparing for this debate. And that's what he came up with, right? It was a lot of hoaxes, a lot of attacks, a lot of lies, a lot of name calling from the current commander in chief, who doesn't have a record to run on and instead has to resort to the name calling that you're reminding everybody of right now.
Elizabeth Pipko, thank you so very much for your time, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon before November.